Programs are not necessarily those of WVON, Midway Broadcasting Corporation, or our participating sponsors.
Live from the Xfinity Studios at WVON. We're your original social media. You're listening to Inspirational Perspective with Linal Harris on 1690, The Talk of Chicago.
If you wanna be about it, come on, let's talk about it. Change up the things you see. Open your mind to possibility. Find your power, passion, and purpose. You know it's time for you to walk in greatness. Let's murder mediocrity. Slay your goals, live out your dreams. Right now. Inspirational perspective. Open your mind to a better life. It's time to live a dream. Your purpose now. Inspirational perspective. Let's slay your goals, let your greatness flow with inspirational perspective.
Good morning, Chicago. You're listening to Inspirational Perspective. I'm your host, Linal Harris, your very own life coach right here on WVON 1690 AM, the Talk of Chicago. Inspirational Perspective on your radio is all about murdering mediocrity and living the best life possible. So as I ask you every Sunday morning, are you living the best life possible? And this is the place to be to explore that possibility. Well, good Sunday morning. It's September 20th, and happy birthday to my nephew. Happy birthday to the previous host, T.O. Hardiman. And happy birthday to anybody else who shares a birthday today. But my nephew Wesley turned 4 today, which of course is my son's little running buddy. And so we had a good time celebrating him last night. And here we are this morning to discuss how mentorship and coaching can change, you could say can transform, however you want, your life. How mentorship and coaching can transform your life. And then I put in the subtitle, and how it transformed mine. And again, remember, this is part 5. This is part 5 of a long-term series on personal development. And actually, you know what? This might actually be part 6. Part 6, I'm sorry. Part 6. So if this is your first time joining us this morning or listening, here's what you missed so far. Of course, you can catch it all on YouTube if you go to my channel at Linal Harris. But the very first part of this was Personal Development 101, where I just talked about personal development overall and how life comes in cycles. And those cycles include winter and fall and how we need to prepare for these seasons in our life. Winter, fall, spring, summer. So when spring and summer is here, this is the opportunity to plant seeds, to grow, to take our lives to the next level, to develop in the ways that will get us through fall and winter, but most importantly, winter. Which in some ways, when you think about 2020, you could say that 2020 could represent in many ways a winter season for many of us. And then we went on from there and we talked about how to create your life's vision. And then the third part was how to develop your self-discipline, which I'm quickly learning is a favorite of you all's. And so thank you for the continued emails and notes on that particular episode. Then part 4 was how to become self-motivated. And last week, I shared why I believe most people lack the courage to be curious, because curiosity is the 4th step of personal development. Now we're on the 5th step in this series, 8-part series. And we're on part 6, means we got 2 more to go. And Today's topic is on how mentorship and coaching can change your life. And of course, the fifth step is to all personal development is mentorship and coaching. Getting feedback outside of yourself about your own personal development. Another way of saying it is getting feedback on who you be from someone who is not you, or how you show up from someone who is not you. Mentorship and coaching. But another way to think about mentorship and coaching is taking the wisdom that someone else has acquired from their life experiences and using that wisdom to navigate in your own life in a way that makes it where you don't have to make the same mistakes and experience the same pitfalls that that person experienced, or a way to fast forward and level set your own success based on the experience they've had in acquiring success. Now, to be clear, personal development is a very personal journey. And that's why when we get into these, I'll talk about the difference between mentorship and coaching. And the reason why I prefer coaching over mentorship, I think mentorship can be quite powerful. But coaching, in many ways, is crafted specifically for the person, because each of us is different, and my experience may not work for you. But the beautiful thing about coaching is that it's been designed, ontological coaching in particular, to get at the very heart of who it is that you are and who it is that you be, so you can see for yourself what it is you need to shift and change for your own personal development. So that's part of what we're going to be talking about today. I'm excited about it. In the past, I haven't taken a lot of calls because I've had so much material to get through, and I want to make sure you guys get this. Today's a bit lighter, and so I definitely want to invite phone calls, questions about the previous topics, but I also like to hear about the impact that a mentor, a teacher, a leader, or coach has had on you, and why that's been so important to your life and how it maybe has changed your life. So give me a phone call, 773-591-1690. The first thing I want to do is talk about virtual mentorship. And for those of you who know me well, this is not a new term. This is not something that you've heard for the first time. But for those of you who may not know me as well, this might be a new term for you. And I want to introduce virtual mentorship to you because I believe it's one of the most powerful modalities of mentorship that many of us often don't think about. But before I get into that, I just want to also share we have 2 parts of this series remaining, and here's what you have to look forward to. Next week we're going to be talking about faith and the power of believing that you can. Faith is number 6 in the 6 steps to personal development. So I'll be spending 2 hours of the show on that. So make sure that you join next week. And then we'll clean the series up talking about continual learning. And I'll be sharing a lot of the things that I do to continually learn and talking about what it means to study success, to study wealth, to study love, to study relationship, as we continually learn and look for ways to, in fact, live the best life possible. So that's what you have to look forward to. All right, so let's dive into this topic, mentorship and coaching. Now, it's interesting because yesterday when I was looking over my notes, I was asking myself, okay, Linal, how do you create a topic title that will pull people in? and have people listen to this, maybe be surprised by it, because the thing that I know, and I'm saying this up front, the thing that I know is when you say how getting help can help, most people are not going to be that interested. And you might say, well, now I don't know about that, man. I'm telling you that most of us we have, in many ways, an adverse feeling or an adverse view of help, right? And the main reason for this I'm going to get into later in the show. But I was just like, man, can I name it something else? Is there a way to, kind of, how we put these sexy titles on things and it gets people to click or gets people to listen? Is there a way to do that today? And I was thinking about it and I said, no, I'm just going to go at it. And part of the reason for that is because when a person doesn't want help, you can't help them. And so whether, you in some ways deceive a person into listening by having a sexy title or not, at the end of the day, they have to be at a point in their life where they're tired of, spinning their wheels, and they say, you know what, I'm willing to go all in and get some support and get some help. And I'll talk more about why we often don't want help. We often don't even believe that we need help from anybody. And if we do get help, we get help from the modalities of the people that have been normalized in our culture. And unfortunately, often the people who have been normalized in our culture aren't necessarily qualified to help us. I'll talk about that as well. So, got a good show in front of us. Let's get right to the phone lines. I got Mike on line 1. Good morning, Mike. How are you?
I'm well. How are you?
I'm well.
All right. So, two things. I agree with you. Mentorship and coaching, two totally different things, and no, not the one stop solution for everyone.
Absolutely.
I'll say in my life, I've had a variety of different people who I didn't expect to be mentors for me, or I didn't expect to coach me and teach me a lesson, but I needed to be able to receive that feedback. Sometimes it was positive, sometimes it was negative, and sometimes it was constructive. I think that developing a relationship with those people is very important, especially if they're willing to spend their most valuable commodity,
Amen.
Their time. They're spending their time to give you feedback and to fill you with knowledge, as you said, to circumvent pitfalls that they've already experienced, so that you don't have to follow the same footsteps, or to allow you to develop at a faster pace. So the other thing, too, that I'll say is whenever I take on a new opportunity, if I think the job is beyond, so I'll say I'll walk into the job with the raw skill sets that I'll need in order to be successful. But then there may be problems that I encounter that go beyond my knowledge. I have a network that I should be able to tap in. That's a first tier, second tier network to give me that feedback on the things that are much larger problems that can guide me and traverse those minefields, because those other leaders have already experienced that. And they say leaders because you talk about you talk about the people in your area. You mentioned something about the individuals that you're going to source your knowledge from. They really need to be leaders.
Now, why do you say that, Mike? Why do you say that if you're gonna source knowledge from people, they need to be leaders? Why do you believe that?
Okay. Well, it really depends on how you define leadership. From my perspective, leadership starts with self. So I'm not saying that they need to lead other people, but they need to exemplify a certain discipline that has yielded success or proven to yield some degree of success. So I'm not just saying that you need to be a leader of many. You first need to be a leader of self. So I'm not going to go and follow a jester or a clown or some fool who hasn't accomplished anything but just has an opinion. You know what they say about opinions, or they're just like what you call it. Everybody has one, right? So so I'm not just going to follow somebody who has an ill-formed opinion. I want to follow a leader, who's able to achieve some level of success.
Got you.
So that's and that could be a subordinate. Could be somebody with a skill set who's got the ability to communicate or something like that. So it's not to say it has to be the top of the food chain.
Yep, I like that. Thanks, Mike. Thanks for the phone call. Thanks for the perspective on that. Absolutely. Good insight. on mentorship and coaching, agreement with the difference between mentorship and coaching. Let's talk about mentorship. Let's talk about mentorship, in particular virtual mentorship, but I want to talk about mentorship at its very core level first. Now, you guys have heard my story, so you know that a lot of earlier on, part of what got me on my track for success was mentorship. So I firmly believe in mentorship. Now, for me, my mentor was much older than me, much wiser than me. I was 22, 23 years old when I received my first mentor and I got my first mentor. Now, here's the thing about mentorship and the way my first mentee experience, as a mentee myself, my first mentee experience went was really my mentor giving to me and me not really knowing or even understanding that I needed to figure a way to give back. I mean, even if it was, let me run, these copies over here. Let me bring coffee with me when I show up. I didn't understand that. And by the way, he was the person that taught me that. That, hey, this is, the fifth or sixth time that we've met, and you still have yet to ask me what I need. And I remember by the way, my mentor, man, he pushed me. And I'm still grateful that I kept coming back, because every time I would leave his office, I would think to myself, why do I go see this man? But he pushed me, and it changed me. But he asked me, hey, what are you going to give me? I'm not giving you all this. What are you going to give me? And I get where he was going. He was very direct and brash, but I get where he was going. Because in the mentor-mentee relationship, I believe the one part that we miss is that it should be a mutual exchange. Otherwise, if you've had a mentor and that mentorship has fallen off, that is the reason why. Because most people, think about this, most people who you would like to be mentored by, right? I'm looking at DJ Pat right now. Like, if there's somebody that he would want to be mentored by, right? That's valuable to you in your career and where you're going. It's likely that if you're going to keep that relationship intact, you need to figure out how you can give back to that individual, right? That's what creates long-term mentorship. Otherwise, most people who are mentoring are incredibly successful for the most part, or the ones we want to be mentored by. And if there's not something being given back on the other side, well, what happens is over time, if there's not a deep level of commitment by that mentor, that space and time that you've created as a mentee will get crowded out. So I'm just giving you all some advice. If you want to make sure that you are looking for mentorship, you want to be able to come to the table and say, hey, I don't know what I can provide you, but over time, I'm looking for ways to make this a mutual exchange. And that will set up the recipe for long-term mentorship, right? This is why some of the longest mentor-mentee relationships typically take place in the corporate arena, areas where the leader mentoring knows, by the way, the leader mentoring likely has stock in the organization, options in the organization. They see you as an up-and-coming leader. They see you as someone that's going to help support this organization. And when they move on, right, which is part of their deep investment, that's why they already see before you say it what's in it for them. But outside of that, for those of us who are entrepreneurs, if you're looking for another entrepreneur, someone else to mentor you, make sure you understand how to bring a mutual exchange to that relationship. And by the way, you have something you can offer. Don't believe you don't. You have something that you can offer. Even if it's a feedback or critique on the business that they're running. Hey, I noticed this. Maybe you can do that. Hey, I just want to bring that to you. Like, look for ways, and of course, get them fully enrolled in that way, but look for ways to make this a mutual exchange. All right. Now, let's talk about virtual mentorship. and why I love virtual mentorship so much. Virtual mentorship is different. And let me start with this. I've been blessed to have some wonderful leaders, teachers, mentors, and coaches. God knows that I've been blessed, and I've had some bad ones, but I've been blessed with some wonderful, great leaders, teachers, mentors, and coaches. And these individuals, they've all made a profound impact on me. And the funny thing is, sometimes I'll be in an interview or someone will ask me, well, can you name a leader who challenged you the most? Or is there a mentor whose insight impacted your career the most? Is there a teacher or a coach that you remember based on what they taught you? And one of the questions that I have yet to receive in an interview, because by the way, I can name those people, okay? I could name those people, but I always ask myself, well, what good does that do the audience? Because the likelihood that they can call that person up, that they can receive some kind of coaching, mentorship, or teaching from that person is incredibly low. And the reason I like virtual mentorship, and why I'm always like, I wonder why people don't ask the question of virtual mentorship, is because most virtual mentors are available not just to me, but to everybody. And let me explain what I mean. A virtual mentor is someone that can be dead or alive, yet they have the capacity to mentor an infinite number of people through their writings, through their teachings, now in the digital age, information age, through their media, through their speeches, through their ideas. Like, they can continue to mentor and teach you, right? It's interesting. I'm working on some curriculum, and there's a gentleman who is no longer with us, but did a lot of work on this particular subject, but he has no books. So I'm looking all over and I'm like, wow, I can't believe he doesn't have books. And a lot of his knowledge is now trapped in his institute. I say trapped because it's such good knowledge, right? But it's trapped in his institute. And that institute is basically closing. So I went to YouTube and I was able to find a few videos of him sharing this knowledge. And again, in that moment, as I'm studying this material, he became my virtual mentor, if that makes sense. Okay? Now, let me give you an example. I'm going to share a few virtual mentors that I've had in the past that have made an impact on my life. That can make an impact on yours. The first, no big surprise, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Now, born in 1929, killed and assassinated in 1968, well before I was born. But Dr. King has made an impact on my life as a virtual mentor. Let me tell you how. The main reason I would highlight Dr. King is his commitment to his dream. Like, that's one of the things that really stands out to me. Now, there are others. When I've read his books, all those things. And by the way, I've looked into Dr. King both in terms of his great qualities and, the mistakes that he made as a man. Because I wanted to learn from him. I even got underneath, okay, I wonder why he made some of these decisions, some of these mistakes. And in thinking about it, it kind of led me to think about my own life and how I want to craft my life so I don't fall into some of those pitfalls. But then the things that he did well, I asked myself the same question. Man, what gave him that deep level of belief in a dream? That deep level of belief in possibility that he couldn't see? And a commitment that he made in the face of fear, compounded by what seemed impossible, is the dream that he shared with us. And Dr. King is often the virtual mentor who reminds me that my dreams are possible, fear can be overcome, and my success is hinged solely on my commitment to my dream. And so what I would say is one of the ultimate lessons I've learned from Dr. King as a virtual mentor is that people follow dreams, not strategies. People follow dreams, not strategies. Now let's fast forward that when we think about our communities today. One of the things I believe is missing in all that's going on, the social unrest, many of the challenges that we have in our community, is what Dr. King provided us, which was a collective dream. People are more willing to follow a dream than they are a strategy. Why? Because as human beings, we're wired. We're wired for stories, and we're wired as storytellers. And so if I share my dream, that is a story. It is a story of the future. And as a human being, the way my psyche works, I can clamp and I can take hold of the story and the possibility of the future much, much more emotionally, much more vigilantly than I could if someone broke down a strategy. And so one of the things I believe that we need to do more as leaders is look to the future and to the possibility of the future for our community and share our dreams. And this is why I shared with you all in the past that one of the dreams I have is the eradication of racism completely. And living in a world where we see one another and the first thing that we see is not race, is not gender, but another powerful spirit on a journey here on earth that can potentially help us, and we're looking for ways to help them. Another big-time virtual mentor is Napoleon Hill. You guys have heard me talk a lot about Napoleon Hill, the book Think and Grow Rich, and how I feel about that book. One of the things that you all might not know is that the first time I read that book was over two decades ago. And since then, I've read that book over 10 times. 10 times. Now, I think it was, I can't remember what week that was, last week or the week before when I talked about comprehension, right? I think it was last week. We were talking about curiosity and learning. And we were talking about comprehension. And so someone may be asking themselves, well, why would you read a book 10 times? Like, what good is it for you to read the same book 10 times? Like, once you, because I think what happens, we have I don't know what you would call it. In our culture, it's kind of now we're at a point where we're big into accumulating stats, right? I've read 100 books, so I did this. So I read, 12 books in 12 months. So I read 24 books in a year. So we're kind of into these stats versus into like the depth and quality of what we're doing, because I'm taking quality over quantity every time. Quality over quantity. The reason I've read this book, and I've read this book so many times, is because every time I read this book, I get something new. It's almost like I hadn't read the book before. There are certain parts of it that I know, but I'll tell you this, even in knowing it, I have found that every time I read it, it becomes a phenomenal reminder. A phenomenal reminder of something that I know, okay? Think and Grow Rich for me is one of my top 3 books. One of my top 3 books of all time, because of the impact it's had on my life. And here's the ultimate lesson that I've gained from Napoleon Hill. By the way, I've read every book that he's put out. He has 3. And most people don't know about the last one, which is Outwitting the Devil. You want to read that one. They don't want you to read it. You want to read it. I'm telling you, Outwitting the Devil is one of those books that will open your eyes to not just yourself, but to a lot of the things that happen around us, and many of the things that we're afraid are happening now. A book that was well before its time. As a matter of fact, an interesting story about that book is he finished writing it right before his death and never had a chance to publish it. And his wife was so afraid. And no, I'm sorry. I think he wrote the book before he died. And his wife was so afraid of the content and the backlash the content could have on him that she didn't want him to publish it, and it ended up getting published later after his death. It's a book that everybody should read. Okay, the ultimate lesson that I've learned from Napoleon Hill as a virtual mentor is every man and every woman should have a clear and definite purpose by which everything else in their life is aligned. I mean, you learn that in the first 2 chapters. But he pushes that notion, and it's something that has changed my life, and something that I believe, and something that if you've attended any of my purpose workshops, by the way, I have one coming soon, so you guys stay tuned for that. We haven't set a date, but we're looking to have one in the 4th quarter. But if you've attended one of those workshops, then you hear my passion around purpose, and the spark for that was created from that virtual mentorship. Okay, a few other virtual mentors. I'm not going to go real deep into them, but man, you know, I don't always agree with this virtual mentor. I haven't always agreed. Even now, there are things about this individual that I question, but I learned a lot from him, and that is President Barack Obama. The ultimate lesson that I learned from our previous president is that others will see you as no more than you see yourself. Other people will see you as no more than you see yourself. That is, I've read all his books. I've listened to a lot of his speeches, most of them. And what I take from that mentorship is people will always tell you what's unreasonable. But what defines greatness is ignoring the unreasonable impossibility and making the unreasonable happen because you believe you can. Because you believe you can. And I'll just leave you with this. How does a one-term African-American senator from Chicago, Illinois, become president of the United States? Because he believed he could. Let me tell you, folks. I mean, these are lessons I've learned from people I haven't met, by the way. None of these people I've met. Seth Godin. If you don't know that name, look it up. Seth Godin. If you're an entrepreneur, definitely write that name down. Seth Godin. Many people know him. He's written over 18 books, most of which I've read. And he's an author, a blogger, and a thought leader on the post-industrial revolution. And it is his virtual mentorship. Once again, I have not met Seth Godin. Now, here's the funny thing. Because I follow him so closely, he had an opportunity for young people to meet him. And I was too old. He was looking for college students. And so I got my sister an opportunity to meet Seth Godin. And I remember when she went out to New York and met him, she sent a picture of the two of them together, and I thought, wow, here it is. I've been following this man, reading his books, and who knew that the mentorship he's provided me would extend itself to my sister, my baby sister. So I'll call them all my baby sisters. It's the oldest sister, but they all my baby sisters. Keela. But here's what his virtual mentorship provided me. Now, if it weren't for Seth Godin's mentorship, virtual mentorship, there would be no inspirational perspective, you guys. It is his mentorship, me following him, me reading the words that this man wrote, me watching the videos and learning from this man. It is him that basically provided the practical message to ship it. That's his thing. ship it. Ship your product. If that means put it in the mail, put it in the mail. If that means press enter, press enter. If that means turn the camera on, turn the camera on and ship your product. And he is the one that gave me the inspiration and in many ways the unction to write my very first blog post on inspirationalperspective.com that started in many ways what is Inspirational Perspective today. Right? And when I think about this, it's like, man, I mean, this is a man I never met, but his mentorship has been invaluable in my life. And this is one of the things that Mr. Golden provides. He talks about how entrepreneurs, that one of the things we have to do is we have to challenge the status quo. And even though we typically get stuck from time to time in our businesses, whenever we have the opportunity to lift our heads, we need to be looking for what status quo in our business, challenge that thing, and reinvent it. Always, constantly reinventing in our business. The ultimate lesson that I learned from Seth Godin is to create a product that stands out and then ship it. He's the one that inspired me to anything that I do. Make sure you follow the full legal process, trademark it, treat your ideas as gold because they are. And let me tell you, I haven't met him, but thank God for him. Okay, Muhammad Ali. And by the way, if you've gained anything from this program, anything from what I've shared, this is someone you should be thankful for too. It's kind of that, that residual effect, right? That residual effect. The last one I'll share is Muhammad Ali. Man, do I love Muhammad. Now, Muhammad Ali is a man that proves that the human spirit and will can overpower and defeat human strength. That the human spirit and will, human will, can overpower and defeat human strength. We refer to Muhammad Ali as the greatest of all time, not because he was the biggest, not because he was the strongest boxer that ever went into the ring, but rather because he relentlessly imposed his will on his opponents in and outside of the ring. Ali taught me that to rely on my will when my physical body feels depleted is the one thing that I have available, even when I believe I can't push forward. That I can tap into my spiritual power, that I can tap into my will and push forward, even when I don't believe I have anything left. And often there have been times where I'm tired, I'm not sure if I can do it, I don't believe I can focus, and I think about him in that ring, being overwhelmed by boxers like Joe Frazier and George Foreman, who were bigger, more powerful, stronger than he was, but he refused to go down. In some kind of way, he found in his spirit the ability to come back out that corner, come back out those ropes, and put together a fight that made him a champion. Man, the ultimate lesson that I've learned from him is that do the impossible and dare to be great. And say it. Say it out loud and be proud. This man, Muhammad Ali, basically would tell us, he would declare what he was going to do before he did it. And then he followed up that declaration with purposeful action. For my Slay Goals members, we talked about how to manifest anything last week, how to manifest anything and take control of your life. Part of that process was envisioning the result and declaring the result, and then taking the action that's necessary to make it a reality. Muhammad Ali was a genius at doing exactly that. All right, so I wanted to spend some time on virtual mentorship this morning. because I believe it's one of those things, right? That I've heard people say, well, I can't find a mentor, or who do I go to? Man, there are virtual mentors available to all of us. And this is my piece of advice before we go to the break and we go into the next hour. In the next hour, I'm going to be talking about why getting supported is so difficult for many of us. And I like to name this part of the show, help, quote unquote, not wanted, right? Help, quote, not, unquote, wanted is the best way to say that, right? So help wanted, but not really, because I don't want to get vulnerable. I don't want to be open. I don't really want to share what I need. I want to seem or appear like I got it all together. And so I want help, but I don't. I want you to help me where I want you to help me, but I want to be able to ask questions in cryptic ways because I don't really want people to see where I have an opportunity or where I have a need and how that gets in our way. I'm going to be talking about that. But before I do, just one last thing on virtual mentorship, virtual mentors. One of the things I would challenge you to do when you select a mentor, I would challenge you, a virtual mentor in particular, I would challenge you to study them from the beginning to the end, right? Now, Seth Godin is still alive. He's still putting out, I think on this list of people, him and President Obama are the two that are still alive, okay? But one of the things that I believe we do all too often is we jump around. And so as a result, we don't get a really deep level of knowledge and training from one person. And I would challenge you this morning to find a virtual mentor, someone whose philosophy, whose thought leadership you trust, and study them from the beginning to the end. What books did they write? What speeches did they give? And take notes on all of it in a way where you begin to gain a congruent message of mentorship for yourself in terms of who it is that you be, how they impact who you be, and how you can take that into the next levels of your life. All right, when we come back, we'll be talking how to get supported, why we don't get supported, along with so much more around coaching and mentorship and how it can transform your life. My name is Linal Harris. I'm your host and life coach right here on Inspirational Perspective. You've been listening to WVON 1690 AM, the Talk of Chicago. We'll be right back after this break. Good morning, good morning, good morning, all of you. How you guys doing this morning?
Black Information Network.
I just saw that, Leslie, that you put up. When you're jumping around, the results you have will be jumping around too. Up, down, no consistency. I believe that.
The Talk of Chicago.
Yeah, study a virtual mentor from the beginning to the end. From the beginning to the end, you guys. All right, well, what questions do you guys have? Just going to look through the feed real quick and see what questions you have. Let me tell you, if you're taking something from the very first part of the show, I always ask that you share the stream, and just let them know. Like, hey, have you ever heard of virtual mentorship? Maybe you put that in the title. Man, the idea here is to really provide the 7 steps of personal development. So whether I'm here, whether I'm not, whether you start following somebody else, you can put together, like you can take these steps and apply it to anything that you want to change in your life, right? And you say, okay, here are the things that I'm going to begin to do to make this happen. And coaching and mentorship in particular are profound because both of them, they provide an accountability that most of the other things that I've discussed don't. Almost all of them, you're the person, right? You're the one, and you got to take this role. There's nothing like accountability, you guys. Nothing like accountability. Okay. Let's see. Just looking through to see if there are any questions. What questions do you guys have? Let me ask you this. Here's something that we probably can do that helps me get to the questions, because I'm scrolling through all of them. And if you just copy and paste your question down at the bottom, then I can just see what you have, because there's over 100 something comments here, and it's difficult for me to get through it in such a short break. So I'm just going to go to the bottom, and if there's any questions you have, just copy and repaste that question for me. But so far it looks like okay, you guys get that, like studying. Let me tell you all how. Here's an idea for you in terms of taking on mentorship. Okay, consider taking one person a year that becomes your person, right? So for me, me doing this has had a profound impact on my life. Here's how. One year it was Dr. King. The entire year, every book, every speech. I have a whole journal on thoughts and notes that I took from Dr. King. Another year was Malcolm X. Okay, same thing, thoughts and notes, everything on Malcolm X, speeches, documentaries, books, autobiography, right? Another year is Frederick Douglass, right? Everything on Frederick Douglass, you know, his books, his man, even the books he read, right? Many people don't know that when he was still a slave and he learned to read, he had a book. I believe it's called the Columbian Orators. And because he was afraid that they would take this book from him, he memorized the entire book. You want to understand why Frederick Douglass became such a profound and prolific speaker? He memorized the entire book of the Columbian Orators. I'm like, man, I need to know this book. And so I went out and bought it. And I haven't even memorized 4 or 5 of the speeches in that book. And to think that he memorized all of them, this is why Frederick Douglass was who he was. It helped me understand who he was, right? And so just a couple of things. All right, here's some questions. Let's go to these questions real quick. I got one from Itoro. What's the real reason people don't want to be held accountable? It's fear. Fear of being seen. Fear of you got to remember, the survival mechanism doesn't want to change. So there's a part of us that doesn't want to change. Real accountability and feedback is typically visceral enough and causes dissatisfaction. Dissatisfaction is the first part of the formula for change. It creates dissatisfaction, thus it creates change. And so for many of us, feedback is uncomfortable, and we like being comfortable, which is one of the reasons we don't like being held accountable. Accountability is not comfortable. It challenges us in a different way. For the Facebook faithful, can you reveal the mentor whose foundation is closing? Okay, so I guess that's for whose foundation is closing. Was that for me, Dale, or was that for everybody else? Let me know.
Protecting, preserving, and preparing our past, present, and future. Sunday evening.
Let's see.
4 p.m. on the Talk of Chicago, 1690.
Okay. How do you know when a mentorship has run its course, time to end? When you've gotten all you can. Like there's let me tell you, you can be mentored by someone for a decade. You can be mentored by someone for a year. Different people have different things to give. And I believe you know it's run your course when you begin to outgrow your mentor, or how you think about things and how you see the world begins to become vastly different from your mentor, right? Because just because your mentor is sharing their experiences and the things that they believe, as you grow, you're going to begin to see the world the way you see it. You don't have to see the world through your mentor's eyes. And you might say to yourself, well, this has been good, but now it's time for me to find mentorship or leadership from someone who is more congruent with where I'm going. And you know, so that's in many ways how you may know mentorship is running its course. And by the way, it doesn't have to. If that mentor is working for you and you're still getting lots from it, then why, if it's not broke, why change it? Great question. Should your mentor be doing what you do? I don't think your mentor has to be doing what you do. I do believe your mentor should be doing something that you want to do, right? Because a lot of the advice, you got to remember, mentorship is different from coaching. So you're going to be getting a lot of consultative advice. And so if that's not where you want to go, if what they're doing is not what you want to do, then some of their advice could be leading you in a different direction, right? And so you got to keep that in mind. For instance, Seth Godin, his virtual mentorship around just ship it. Well, I had things I wanted to put out in the world. That mentorship was phenomenal for me and still is to this day. All right, we're coming back. Great questions, you guys.
Those of WVON, Midway Broadcasting Corporation, or our participating sponsors.
Live from the Xfinity Studios at WVON.
Glenn, yes, a mentor coach, they're different. I'll talk about that.
You're listening to Inspirational Perspective with Linal Harris on 1690, The Talk of Chicago.
If you wanna be about it, come on, let's talk about it. Change up the things you see. Open your mind to possibility. Find your power, passion, and purpose. You know it's time for you to walk in greatness. Let's murder mediocrity. Slay your goals, live out your dream. Right now, inspirational perspective. Open your mind to a better life. It's time to live. Let's find your purpose now. Inspirational perspective. Let's slay your goals, let your greatness flow. With inspirational perspective.
All right, we're back. You're listening to Inspirational Perspective. I'm your host and coach, Linal Harris, right here on WVON 1690 AM, The Talk of Chicago. Well, today's topic, how mentorship and coaching can change your life, can transform your life. When I think about my own life's journey, I have to give a lot of acknowledgement to leaders, teachers, mentors, and coaches that have profoundly changed my life. It's funny, one particular coach, this was my first ontological coach almost 10 years ago. If it weren't for him really helping me understand the power of declaration, I wouldn't be married. I wouldn't have my family. So when I talk about the impact that a mentor, a coach, a teacher, a leader can have, I'm not talking just minor impact. I'm talking about major life-shifting impact. And I'm incredibly grateful to that coach. Not only for the coaching and for the teaching about declaration, but also for holding me accountable, and also being someone that suspended judgment, allowed me to be open, allowed me to be vulnerable in a way that, and bring accountability with the grace, right? That allowed me to just continually focus in on my goals, continually focus in on what I wanted to create in my life. And transform in ways that even now when I run into old friends and old buddies, they like, man, I can't really believe that you're doing what you do. Or I can't really believe that you're a family man. I can't really believe you're an entrepreneur. Like it's fascinating for them because they knew so well who I was. And to see the level of transformation that my life has undergone, it for them is like, wow. And for me, when I really think about it and I get present to it, it's like, wow. But this is the impact that mentorship and coaching can have. So if that's the case, if it can have this level of impact, why is it that so many of us, when we begin to go down this journey to be supported, so many of us are afraid to take the leap and get supported? Why is it that getting support can be so difficult? And why is it that when it comes to receiving help, many of us do not know how to take the help? Now, this is a loaded question, man. Because first and foremost, help is something that you receive. And I was just thinking about a conversation my wife and I had about someone receiving help that didn't know how to receive it. Just had it yesterday. And we both, like, my mouth was open as she was sharing the feedback with me. I'm like, what? But this person's helping this person. She's like, I know. And I'm like, wow. But the person who was being helped basically cursed out the person that was helping him. And it's kind of like, how does that happen? Well, let's get underneath it. Like, let's talk about the psychology of why being helped or receiving is so difficult for us. Because I just finished up a book early this year called The Go-Giver. I'm throwing a lot of books out there. But write them down, because these are books that, you know, they have an impact, but it's called The Go-Giver. And in the book, the authors, two authors, they talk about how the reason why many of us aren't where we want to be is because they have basically five rules of giving. And the fifth rule is learning how to become a receiver. Like, if you're going to give, you also have to know how to, on the back end, when that giving comes around full circle, you have to be open to receiving what you've already put out. Right? So if I'm giving, I'm supporting people, I'm helping people, then when it's time for me to receive help, I have to be a phenomenal receiver. I have to know how when that person shows up and says, I want to do this for you because of all that you do, how to actually step back and say, thank you. Thank you. I appreciate you giving to me. And most of us, I want you to really think about this. Most of us, the first thing out of our mouth, because of what we've been no, it's okay. You don't have to do that. No. And then we step back and we wonder, oh, I give so much. Why am I not blessed? Why am I not receiving my blessings? It's because you're pushing them away. Person wants to give to you, and you're saying, no, I don't need that. All I'm going to do is give. And you're not allowing the full circle of retribution in terms of what you give, come back to you because you don't know how to receive help. Now, let me give you an example, right? Because it's one thing to say it, but I believe examples bring these type of things to life. So let me know, does this type of dialogue sound familiar? You walk into a store, and let's say it's a store you don't really know what you know what you're looking for, but you can't necessarily find it, right? I remember not too long ago I walked into an auto store and I was looking for something for the car. Guy said, "Hey, you need any help?" "I got it." No, I don't. I have no idea where what I'm looking for in the store is. Why would I say, "No, thank you, I got it"? Why? Because I've been programmed in many ways to, be leery of people trying to help you. So you walk into a store, say you walk into Nordstrom. "Hey, good morning. Do you need any help this morning?" "No, thank you. I've got it." Like you have no idea where the purse section is, right? Like you need help. Why do we do this? Right? So I'm just level setting. Now, at this point in my life, I make an asserted effort when people ask me for help or ask me if I need help to actually stop. I remember shopping for my wife's birthday gift. My son and I were out, walking to the store. "Good morning, sir. Do you need any help?" I stopped my son. I said, "Well, here are the things that I'm looking for. How would you go about this in this store? It's big. What department would you go to first?" "Well, if you look right to your right, there's the purse department, and then you can go downstairs after that, and perfect, right? But there was a time in my life, man, where I'd have like, nah, I got it. I would have walked right past the purse department, right? Trying to shop for my wife. I would have walked right past it, walked around the store for 10 minutes trying to figure it out. Now, most of us have been on both sides of that kind of exchange, right? Excuse me, do you need help? Nope, I don't. And this happened to me recently. I reached out to a friend who acknowledged that they needed professional and entrepreneurial development support, right? They're like, man, I really could use this. And so there was a coach I know who was offering some free coaching sessions, well-qualified peer of mine. But they're going for another level of certification and distinction. They wanted to get their pro bono hours up. I said, Linal, you know anybody who would be open to coaching, but I'm looking for an entrepreneur. I'm looking for someone who has a well-developed business. Even though I'm doing it for free, I want this to be fun for me. I really want to support somebody that, in a way that will take them to the next level. And so I called this friend of mine up. I said, hey, remember you were saying that you could really use some entrepreneurial support, etc. There's a coach who, and before I knew it, before I could even explain it, my friend, I don't need a coach. I mean, they snapped at me. I don't need a coach. I couldn't even make the final offer. And so I tried to explain, like, no, you don't understand. There's no obligation. They don't want to be paid. This is pro bono. And they just cut me off, refused to listen. Linal, no, thank you. I got this. Okay. And I remember getting off that call. Like, man, what is it about the human experience that makes us want to be so self-sufficient to the extent we deny and turn away the very help that we've asked for and so desperately need? Like, what is it about our psyche that causes us to do this? And by the way, I've done it. I'm guilty of it. And so, I'm thinking to myself, and here's some of the questions I began to ask myself. Does admitting that I have a need for help translate into the admittance of an internal impediment? Like, is that what it is? Like, we're like, okay, well, something's wrong with me because I need help? Or here's another way of asking it. Does asking for help, is that an outward expression of internal weakness? No, and here's what I've come to. I believe it's quite the opposite. What I believe is that people who know how to solicit help, are willing to be vulnerable and get the help, are incredibly strong. They're incredibly confident. They're incredibly secure in who it is that they are. And how I've come to this conclusion is the areas where I push off help the most are the areas where I'm most insecure. Like, even in my business, right? The areas in my business where I push off help, where I'm not necessarily, trying to get support and help, or I'm leery of the help. These are also the areas where I'm most insecure. So think of, like for you right now, think about the areas that trouble you the most in your business and what it is that you do. And how do you show up in that area? Are you open? Are you open? Are you willing to receive the help? If so, man, kudos to you, because most of us, if it's an area of insecurity, that's the one area where it's difficult for us to allow people in. There's a quote that captures this, and it's the person is anonymous, but it says, "Be strong enough to stand alone, smart enough to know when you need help, and brave enough to ask for the help that you need." And believe me, I know that it's easier said than done. Here's the other thing. I get that coaching is scary. Why do I say that? Because I remember how I felt going into my first coaching relationship. I get that therapy is scary. I remember the first time someone said you should go see a therapist. And the reaction I had to that, the internal reaction I had to that comment. I should go see a therapist. So I made it personal. It was like, what? I should go see a therapist? What do you mean? I need a therapist? You know, what's that about, right? And I even remember the first time I sat down with a therapist, how scared I was. You know, making that trek from the parking lot to the office. It was like, man, what's going to happen? Anxiety. And almost any kind of assistance is scary. As an entrepreneur, like, you know, the person who I hire, brand new person I hire, they're nervous. First day on the job, I'm nervous too. Because like, okay, what kind of help is this going to be? What kind of support are they going to provide? Is everything they said in the interview true? Are they going to live up to their resume, right? I'm nervous. They're nervous. We're all nervous. Help is scary. And almost any kind of assistance is scary. And accepting help makes us vulnerable. And that's one of the reasons I believe it's scary. It makes us vulnerable. And here's a couple of things I would say, you know, for you to take on to think about this. When you say no to help, what are you really saying? Like, write that question down. When you say no to help, what are you really saying? And then here's another question. How often do you turn down help that you actually need? Just ask yourself that. How often do you turn down help that you actually really need? I remember leaving the grocery store. I'm laughing. But it's just, I mean, this is what happens, right? I remember leaving the grocery store and I see an older woman, Caucasian woman. And she's got these big water bottles, this collection of water bottles in her cart. And I see her trying to figure out how she's going to get these waters from her cart into her trunk. And so as I'm walking by, I just pause and I say, do you need any help with that? First thing out of my, no, I got it. So, okay. Because it didn't look like she did. And I'm thinking like, man, you know, she didn't look like robust and strong enough to actually make that transition. So I keep walking and I kind of cut back and I say, you know, maybe I can go back in and see if someone who works here can help you. Would you be open to that? And she kind of paused and she looked me up and down. And she said, well, yes. And so as I'm walking, I walk back and I'm next to her now. And then I say to her, or I can do it. And she finally, okay. And I take the 2 things of water and I put them into her trunk and I close the trunk for her and I said, well, you have a good day. She said, well, thank you, young man. She needed the help. She was just scared. Now, you can sit here and ridicule her. We can make all kinds of, you know, create all kinds of reasons for why she did what she did. Oh, she saw a black man, blah, 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 blah. Where are you doing the same thing? Jumping to a conclusion before you actually allow yourself to think through, could I really use this help? Could I really use this help? Got a phone call, line 1. Let's go to Tracy. Tracy, good morning. How are you?
Okay, how are you?
I'm well.
I just want to say that I think that most people, when someone offers them help, they might think that person thinks that they're weak, and so that's why they don't really want, help, I think.
So your take is about a personal weakness. They're offering me help because they think I'm weak?
Okay, maybe the person who is receiving the help might think that others think that they're weak, and so therefore they say, no, I don't need any help. So I'm just thinking, but I just want to say I need help.
I got you.
Yeah. So, but I wanted to ask you a question. With my business, and I'm having a hard time scheduling myself as to, what I do today, what I do now, and all that. Is there a book, or how do you do that? And is there a book about that?
On time management?
Yeah, I think that's what I need because I got a lot that I'm doing, and so I find myself just doing this and that, but not doing it well, in my opinion.
Got it. Woo, that's a loaded question, Tracy. And remember, you're talking to a coach.
Okay.
So let me give you a few places to look. All right. And by the way, this is great. I love this. It's not on topic, but I'm gonna help you because I believe that there are other people who can really use this support. All right. Here's the first question. Just write these down. These are things I want you to think about over the week. And you can call back next week and we can finish.
Okay.
So these are kind of like practices. The first question is, and this is to you, and this is to anybody else who's listening. Like, how do you perceive time? How do you perceive time? Do you perceive time as something you have an abundant amount of? Or you perceive time as something that is scarce that you never really have enough of? That's the first question. Just think about that over the week and notice how you move throughout the week and the story you keep telling yourself about time. See, because here's the thing, Tracy. I could give you a phenomenal time management book to read, but if you don't handle your perception of time, then what will happen is how you see time will just basically fold on top of the learnings of the book, and you'll have a more intricate way for how you lose time in your life. That makes sense?
Mm-hmm.
So you'll institute these new processes and they might work for a week, and then your perception of time will get underneath it, or your context of time, it's another way to say it, will get underneath that and start to pull apart all the learning and everything that you did to construct some type of system. Another question is this. What percentage of the week are you operating in your zone of genius? And here's what I mean. You understand what I mean when I say zone of genius?
Like learning more, something to better yourself doing?
No. That's not what I mean. What I mean, your zone of genius is when you're actually taking on, like actually delivering the work that you're most suited to deliver, right? You're leaned into your talents. Like, is there something that you do in your business where you lose track of time, and when you look up, you feel good about it because you got so much done?
I like that. Yeah, there is. Yeah, because I have two businesses. Linal, I have the janitorial business, and then I also massage. So I have an office that I have not opened yet, but I only massage people that I know, and that's from my church. So that's another thing I need to do is actually open, but I have not wanted to open. That's another situation. But when I'm trying different things like these different scrubs that I do, and so then I lose time and I end up doing like an hour and a half massage when I should have did an hour massage.
Okay, so here's the thing. And by the way, that's something that's around your time management. It's also more around how you value your time. Right? And that's something else. So, many of us don't value our time. But let me go back to the zone of genius real quick. The areas. What percentage of? Okay, what did you say? What percent of the week that I right now that you lose track of time in because of your enjoyment of the work that you do? Okay. That is likely your zone of genius. Like when you get into it, like I'll give you a perfect example. The Monday, the coaching webinar I do on Mondays is free. By the way, you can register on linalharris.com. But it's free. But if I'm not careful, I'll talk to them for 2 hours. I mean, we'll work for 2 hours, answer questions for 2 hours, I'll coach for 2 hours because I love coaching. That is my zone of genius. You get where I'm going? Now, I have to be disciplined because I also value my time. And I understand that just because it's my zone of genius and it's something I love doing, doesn't mean that you give it away freely to anybody, because there's still an energy. I still have to measure my energy for the day, right? So when I say zone of genius, that helps you understand what it is that you love to do. And the idea is that you create a business around your zone of genius where you have support doing everything else. That makes sense?
Hello?
Yeah, I'm here. Can you hear?
Oh, okay. Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay. Does that make sense to you?
Yeah.
Okay. So that's what I mean by zone of genius. Now you had another question. Go ahead and ask that question real quick.
I think that was it. I can't because so that was it. But anyway, I just want to say I wrote down those 25 things. Actually, I wrote down 30 things. Remember, you were saying to write down 25 things that
25
you want
curiosities.
Yeah. So I wrote those down. But I enjoy your show, and I admire you, and I just want to say that you're easy to listen to. You don't sound I have the word that I want to say, but you know how some people are arrogant and you just can't listen to them because they're talking loud, but you can't really hear them or something like that. You know, you're really easy to listen to, so I just want to tell you that. So thanks a lot, Linal, and have a good week.
All right, you too, Tracy. You too. Thank you for the acknowledgement, Tracy. I appreciate that. You know, I think I remember struggling. And I remember how difficult it was for me to make the transitions that I've made. And so because of that, man, please check me if you guys ever feel like I'm being arrogant about something. Now, I'll hold you accountable. Accountability is different from arrogance, though. But I'm just, I'm not big on being arrogant, because just as quickly as I got it, I can lose it. And I believe that. All right, good call. Hey, let me say something about the 25 curiosities. It's funny, I was talking to a few clients over the week, and they were talking about these, man, the 25 curiosities that you shared last week, man, that was amazing. You do all of that? And I'm like, no, they're curiosities. I might be working on one or two of them right now, but they're curiosities. These are things that tickle my fancy. So I use them to guide me. And I gave one client an example. Like, say, for instance, I have a little free time and I start flipping through Netflix. Like, what am I going to watch? Now, my wife and I, at this point in our lives, we find it very difficult to find something that will adequately entertain us, okay? It's just because a lot of stuff, there's a lot of content, there's a lot of quantity, but not a lot of quality, right? And so typically we'll end up looking at something that in many ways sparks our curiosity. I have 25 curiosities that I have listed, and I shared those curiosities. And so those are the kind of things where I'll end up landing, often on a documentary, often on something that's researching or going into something that I'm curious about, because I'd rather, tickle that curiosity than watch, some, movie that ends flat and just, why did I spend an hour, 2 hours watching that? Right? So that's why I like to be clear on my curiosities, because they help lead me. And I'm not working on all 25 at one time. No, I'm a human being. I have a family. I like to spend time with my family. And as much as I work, believe me, I don't even have the space to work on 25 curiosities all at once. Just to clear up any misconceptions that people had that I'm doing all these things. It's like, nah, man, I'm a full-time coach, entrepreneur, running multiple businesses, family man, and that's where I put the majority of my time. And when I do have the opportunity to explore these curiosities, that's what I do. Okay. Good question by Tracy. Loaded question about time, you guys. This is why coaching. Let me give you this. One of the other things I learned from my coach early on, and I'll talk about this conversation because this is one of the reasons why I think we don't like getting help. So, I'm a corporate executive at the time. I'm pretty much, I'm reporting into the CEO at the top of the food chain in terms of corporate America, and I'm having a conversation with my coach about time. And what I was telling him is, my request for coaching is, how do I handle all my responsibilities with so little time? And so halfway in the coaching conversation, my coach makes an assertion. And he says, my assertion is that your not enough context is also stepping into how you experience time. And I remember him making that comment because I remember how angry I got. And the first thing I thought, my coach wasn't an executive. My coach hadn't had the experience in corporate America that I had. And the first thing I attacked was, man, you don't even get it. You have no clue. Who do you think you are to make an assertion about how I experience time when you have no clue about how my time is used on a daily basis? And I wanted to get into the content and the context of my time, how I have meetings and blah, 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 blah. And he's like, look, man, what it comes down to is the choice you make and how you experience that time. And if you tell yourself throughout the day, you don't have enough time, you're a creator. And that is what your truth will be. And I remember getting off that coaching call, man, I was livid. I'm like, this dude, he don't even get it. I don't even know why I'm doing coaching. I was just really upset. I'm like, and then I just wasted an hour talking about time with somebody who tells me that my experience of time is the reason I don't have time. I don't have time for coaching. That was really at the end of the conversation how I felt. But then I got curious, right, from last week's topic. I got curious. I'm like, well, what if there's something to what he's saying? And so I started to get curious about my context of time. And I got curious about how I could use my essence and my spiritual substance to begin changing the conversation. And as I began to do this, I started noticing my experience of time change. Like, that's interesting. I don't have enough time for that because of this. And one of the other things I began to experience is understanding why my experience of time was actually sourced from my not enough context. By the way, this is why you guys should join on Mondays, because those who join on Mondays, we've actually had a deep conversation about context and cognitive distortion. So you all get this. Now, somebody right now is saying, what is not enough context? It's a lens. It's how you see the world. By the way, you can join on Mondays by registering at my website, linalharris.com, for free. But your context is a lens, and it's how you see the world. And if you see the world through the lens of not enough, then everything is not going to be enough. Your money, yourself, your spouse, your job, your spirituality, everything will not be enough. You will always look as if you're always behind the 8 ball when it comes to whether you have enough or not. It just won't be enough, because that's how you look at the world. You scan the world asking yourself, is there enough? And typically your conclusion, based on your cognitive distortion, based on your context, based on your lens, is that it's never enough. It's never enough, right? So because of that, a spouse could be pouring all the love they know to pour on their husband or on their wife. And if I have not enough context, it's just not enough. There's nothing they can do that will ever be enough, because the lens I have is not enough. And this is why that knowing you have that lens is so important, and getting the help for navigating that lens is so important, because when you can shift it, you can shift and transform everything in your life, including your experience of time, your experience of love, your experience with money, the experience of your career, the experience of health. The list goes on. Help is a beautiful thing if you're willing. So let's get back into this. So why do we refuse help? I got a bunch of questions. Here's another one. In the future, if you catch yourself refusing help, I want you to practice stopping and getting clear on what you're really pushing away. What am I really pushing away? Is the opportunity Is it an opportunity to trust? Like maybe you're pushing it away because you don't want to have to trust? Is it fear of the future success of moving forward? Remember that, we like to be comfortable, and any change, including our success, creates an uncomfortable situation. So is it fear of your own success? Is it fear that you're inadequate? And now you will be exposed, like people will know that I'm inadequate. Is it fear of dependency? Like if I get help, the help I need, I might find out that I don't know how to operate without the help. So fear of dependency, is it that? But the real question is, what would you say is your help deficiency? Write down this. What's my help deficiency? And to answer this question will set you up for more success. I'm telling you. Because we all need help to achieve our goals. We all need help to achieve our dreams. Let me tell you, man, you finally buy that dream house. You're going to need help moving into it. You going to move everything? I'm not. You're going to need help. We all need help. Okay? Michael Barbarulo has a quote. He says, "A healthier way of thinking and acting is to allow yourself to receive the help and love you need. You weren't designed to live alone. You have limitations on your strength, and you have limitations on your abilities. Get the help. Get the help." Now, here's the crazy part, right? Because if you go into the store soon, you're going to see that everything's about to start changing, right? Right now, they're getting set for Halloween. But as soon as that's over, we enter into the holiday season. And we enter into the season of giving. And most of us are fairly good at receiving tangible gifts. Oh man, what did you give me now, right? But maybe this is a good time to focus on how well we receive the help and love we need. And what I would say is, the better we get at receiving help, the stronger we will be. And the better we get at receiving love, the more effective we will be in our lives holistically. All right, got another phone call before we talk a little bit about embracing change and the change that help brings. Let's go to line one. Carolyn, good morning. How are you?
Good morning. So I just wanted to touch bases and kind of reiterate what you just mentioned. When you talk about why people don't accept help, I know particularly in my younger days, maybe less than 10 years ago, I didn't accept help because I knew it wasn't coming from love. It wasn't connected to love. So a lot of times, when you are able to identify, you have a sense of discernment, you're able to identify that people not presenting help or supporting you, and it's not connected to love. It's almost like it's detrimental to accept it.
I see where you're looking with that one. So it sounds like you've had the experience, and I get this too as a woman, where sometimes, and I completely get where you're looking. Sometimes people are like, "You need help with that?" And you like, nah. Because you know that help is not coming from a genuine place of love and support. Is that what you're saying?
Absolutely.
Got it.
More so from a place of manipulation long term.
I get it. Now, let me ask you this. So have you noticed that your experience of that, right, of people giving or providing or looking to provide help for who have ulterior motives may have had you say no to help that you could receive when it was pure?
No. So in the experience, because of that, my initial reasoning, when love was developed, or because I concentrated on love, I was able to learn how to be more of a receiver and not to allow the manipulation to take place. So in my days today, it's very easy for me to accept help. Very easy, whether it's a conversation or coaching or anything. Like, it's very easy because I provide myself with that level of love that I used to seek from other people.
Ah, I see. Okay. So you've stepped into a new level of self-love, which I love, because, by the way, that what I'm hearing is that allows you to accept help in a different way.
Yes.
And if someone is trying to manipulate or has ulterior motives, because of your level of self-love, you can root that out fairly quickly.
Oh my goodness, it's so easy to see now. Yes.
Now, I recognize your voice now. You're a Slayer Goals member.
I am.
Yes. Okay. So, real quick, I think this is a great opportunity, if you don't mind, Carolyn.
I don't.
Because you're a member of the Slayer Goals coaching community, where I host coaching and training for this community on twice a month. Now, one of the things, and the reason I recognize your voice is because you're willing to ask for help within that community and get coaching within that community. What would you say has opened you up to coaching and training in a way that you're so willing to jump into the coaching seat, so willing to get that support, and by the way, so willing to be a Slayer Goals member, that, if I'm not mistaken, I mean, I'll let you say it, but you've received a lot of value from that community and that modality of coaching?
So for me, it started out similar to the first caller. Like, it started out with just listening to you and your tonality. So I think it correlates with like where a person is emotionally and mentally. And I just made a mistake and clicked AM, because I never clicked AM on my radio, and I just heard your voice. And immediately it was a connection, like, wow, what is I'm hearing? And then, like, I continued to tune in. So that led to me going to the Murder Mediocrity Summit and becoming a member.
Wow. And
that was all because of your tonality. So it's like different people, I guess, receive, like for example, a teacher, like, you learn from people that look like you, right?
Right.
Better, people, research suggests. So for you, like, it's your tonality, like, I can hear it when you're passionate, I can hear it when you, like, it's so authentic. And I think that really is what kind of captivated me. And it has me so passionate and willing to support others and to accept the support from others.
Wow. Okay. Thank you. I didn't expect that answer, but I appreciate you. I'm fascinated by how a mistake can turn into coaching support. Like, it was a mistake. You were AM versus FM, heard my voice, became a listener, went to the summit. Like, so you were willing to accept the help I was offering over the radio. But what I'm getting from you is that there was a sense of authenticity that you got from me that made it where you were willing to accept that help.
Absolutely.
Right.
I was on the expressway, and, you're not all the way focused, driving and touching the radio, and I clicked AM, and it was like, wow.
Wow.
And then I heard you, like, reiterate that, the program is 7 to 9 o'clock on Sundays, and I was like, oh my God. So the next week I listened, and it was the same voice. And it was just, the information was just so beneficial for me at the time. I instead of just listening, I started taking notes, and I started to apply the information that you were exposing or giving, and my life just, like, every month I started to see a change, and I'm like, wow. And I started to help other people, and then, like, one day you had said, like, a lot of times we're listening to things, and we're like, oh, such and such needs this help. And I will always try to help other people. And I stopped doing that, and I was like, this is not for everybody else. This is for me. I need to get this information. And so I started to invest more, and voila, my life is like a drastic 360 within the past 2 years. Drastically.
Wow. And you, what would you contribute that to? In terms of the 360, the transformation that you've seen, would you say the coaching and mentorship has helped you that way?
Interestingly, before coaching, I was mentoring. I was a mentor.
Okay.
And I realized that, like our journey is not all about giving and helping other people. We really, a lot of times, and I know especially for me as a black woman, we are trained to give to everyone else. And I was always against that. So when I connected with you, you was my radio, you mentioned virtual mentor. You was my radio mentor. And I was like, wait a minute, I need this. And so just accepting that, it puts me in a position where I can help people on a whole nother level in so many different ways, where before it was just so basic. And so it's another level when you're open to get to receive.
Got it. Wow. Well, Carolyn, thank you. Thank you for the phone call. Thank you for the acknowledgement. I'm like, you do get, I don't believe in mistakes. I don't believe in mistakes.
Yeah, it probably wasn't.
Yeah. And sometimes we're asking for things, and we're looking for things, and we're led to that. And I want to acknowledge you for being willing to get the help, and for continuing to listen and getting the help and support that you've needed, and even the work that you do within the Slay Your Goals community, the courage that you come to those webinars and calls with to get coached and provide so much for everyone in the community. I wanna acknowledge you for that as well. And as soon as I recognized your voice, I was like, oh wow, okay, and thank you for the phone call.
No problem. Thank you for existing.
All right.
I appreciate it.
Oh, you're welcome. You're welcome. This is my purpose, and this is why I exist. So I believe that to the depth of my soul. All right, awesome. Thank you for the phone call.
Thanks.
Okay. Wow. Well, that was a treat to all my Slay Your Goals members, and to Carolyn, who's a member. By the way, if that's something you want to do, you can go to www.slayyourgoals.com, download the book for free, and that will take you on a journey where you can potentially become a Slay Your Goals member as well. You can always go to my website and apply for membership. Okay, that was a beautiful treat, man. A lot of acknowledgement today, man. You all are really making me feel good about this work. Definitely fulfilling. Which having a conversation about mentorship and coaching, I didn't sign on for acknowledgement, but I've learned how to take it. I've learned how to take it. Okay, so here's how I want to end. We got 5 minutes. I wanted to talk about embracing change. I'm going to just jump down to some great advice for dealing with change in a book by Gary Hamel called The Future of Management. And he gives six ways of actually dealing with change. I'm gonna give it real quick, and then I'm gonna wrap up the show. Number 1 is overcome the temptation to make refuge in denial. This is regarding change, that things are actually changing. Overcome the temptation to take refuge in denial. Number 2, the longer you take refuge, the longer it takes to renew yourself. Okay, keep that in mind. So when it's time to change, the longer you take refuge that there's no need for change, the longer it takes to renew yourself. Number 3, conquer denial. Notice that he stayed on denial for the first 3. Conquer denial. I got this. I don't need help. All those things. Don't dismiss, rationalize, or mitigate the presence of new information. Conquer denial. Don't dismiss, rationalize, or mitigate the presence of new information. Number 4, confront yourself. Number 5, face the facts. Where am I? Where have I been? Have I really taken the steps that I intended to take? And number 6, question your beliefs. Do you welcome dissent? Woo, this is big for our culture right now. Do you welcome dissent? Do you welcome dissent? Then he went on to say in the book, the incumbents are being left behind. Success is a self-correcting phenomenon. In turbulent times, humility is truly a virtue. What is humility? The ability to be curious and actually question one's own beliefs. The presence of so much new information means the facts are changing. This sometimes strikes at the core of what we thought we knew. But remember, in the information age, new information is always coming. And sometimes that information is better than the information that we had. And so you always want to be asking yourself questions and not getting caught in denial. I want to end with this. I want to give you guys a feedback formula. And this is a powerful way to really begin accepting feedback in your life. Now, if I'm you, one of the things I'm going to do is everybody around me that I love, I'm going to give them this formula on how to give me feedback. And the first thing I would say is identify the best way that you hear other people when they're holding you accountable. Like, what is it that you need to do? What is it that you need to say that fully opens you up to to listening. To listening and absorbing what someone has to say, okay? And then once you identify that, you want to share that with other people. Here's mine. When someone gives me feedback, I always request first that they tell me. Let me know, hey man, I have some feedback for you. And then after you do that, I always ask, give me a moment to make a decision. Whether I'm going to receive the feedback or I'm going to say, you know what, not right now, right? Because all of us have that right. All of us have that right. Now, the majority of the time, 98% of the time, I'm going to say, okay. Now, what am I doing in the pause? What I'm doing is I'm emotionally preparing myself to receive some level of accountability, some level of information that is going to make me feel vulnerable, that's going to make me feel open, that's likely going to make me feel exposed. And I do not want to attack. I do not want to attack the person that's given me such a wonderful gift. And so what I typically do, I take a deep breath. And that's what I say is just letting the drawbridge down. Dropping the drawbridge so they can actually get the feedback into my heart. And then I say, okay, what do you have? And I listen intently. I don't cut them off. I listen until they finish. And when they do finish, I ask, are you done? And when they say, yes, I'm done, I say, thank you. I don't argue. I don't say that's not true. I just say, thank you. And then I take that feedback. Sometimes I'll write it down. Sometimes it's deep enough and clear enough where I can remember it. And I'll process that feedback to see where I can truly apply it in my life in a way that will make me better. I ask this of my mentors. I ask this of my coaches. I ask this of my teachers. I've asked this of my leaders. And it has been a tremendous tool for me in terms of how I proceeded in my life. So this morning, as we talk about mentorship and coaching and how it can transform your life, by all means, I hope that what you've learned over this last 2 hours will transform yours. Until next week, thank you all for joining. You listen to Inspirational Perspective. My name is Linal Harris, your host and life coach, right here on WVON 1690 AM, the Talk of Chicago. Have a blessed Sunday. All right, you guys. I hope that you did enjoy the show, that you got a lot from it. And I look forward to connecting with many of you next week. Well, not next week, tomorrow. For Monday's call. Until then, have a phenomenal Sunday, you guys.